One of the things that's been kind of annoying about trying to get the studio set up and not actually having everything ready to go is a few articles appeared that I really wanted to cover, but I didn't have everything set up and able to do so. And this was one of those articles, and just whatever editor thought of this headline needs fired. Like honestly, the way that a lot of newspapers like work is the journalist, like in this case Jack Pete, writes the article itself, and then the editor chooses the headline. So the headline is chosen by an editor, not the journalist that wrote the article. It's happened with me a few times. Like I've had a Daily Record reporter, like in my mentions, like in my DMs, going, "Oh, can you give a quote about this or that or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, because you're just going to call me a racist or alt right or white supremacist." And the guy was like, "Oh no, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything like that." And I went, "All right, okay, I'll give the journalist a chance." Famous last words. And he wrote an article that was actually quite fair, but the headline of the article said like something like "racist YouTuber Count Dankula," and I messaged the guy like, "Really, really, mate?" And he's like, the journalist was actually in a bit of a flap, going, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, it wasn't me. Like we don't choose the headlines, it's the editors, they choose the headlines." And he was freaking out, and I was just like, this is why nobody wants to talk to you guys, right? But yeah, that's just the way it goes. But whatever editor chose this headline needs fired. Lawrence Fox says Neil Oliver speaks for us all with reprehensible pro freedom views. Reprehensible pro freedom views. I find your pro freedom views reprehensible. Journalists are so disconnected from reality. It's reprehensible pro freedom views. If my freedom means you might catch COVID from me, then so be it. Lawrence Fox has given his blessing to a Neil Oliver clip in which he shared reprehensible views on the COVID-19 pandemic. Appearing on GB News, the former BBC presenter claimed he would cheerfully risk catching the deadly disease for the sake of personal freedom. Well, what are we supposed to do? Stay locked down forever? Because this virus is not going away. It's here to stay. Pardon. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. China should be paying the price for it. I'm just saying. Um, he then went on to compare those who refused to comply with current guidelines to those who fought in the Battle of Britain, saying it was a minority of people outgunned and shouted down by fellow citizens who felt deals might be struck with tyrants, who stood up against fascism during the Second World War. I am a free man. Nothing wrong with that. The ex-Coast presenter, who has a weekly show on the controversial channel, added, "For me, without freedom, there is no point in anything. So take away all the numbers, all the statistics, all the models and predictions. For me, it all boils down to something simple. I declare that I am a free man. I was born into a part of the world where I was taught that my freedom was won for me by men and women who died to make it so. In the beginning of that fight to prevent the victory of tyranny, it was a minority outgunned and shouted down by fellow citizens who stood up and said no. Merely to live is not enough, not nearly. What matters is to live in freedom. I will cheerfully risk catching COVID." I mean, he's absolutely right. He's right. The lockdowns have proven to like not work. They're like they have not worked, right? And for some reason, when places are opening back up, the COVID cases are dipping, which makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. Like to the point where either some crazy fuckery is going on, or the statistics are incorrect. Like, and in my understanding, like I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but if there's a virus going around and you have everyone locked down, and then you let everyone back out into public, to me that would make cases shoot up. Everyone's mingling and touching each other and licking door handles and all that stuff. That would make viruses shoot up. But some places are showing that the virus is going down. That doesn't make sense to me. So maybe the statistics are wrong. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be. Unfortunately, I am working with all of the information that is given to me by mainstream media, and unfortunately, that changes day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, to the point where personally I have tuned out because I'm getting conflicting information from fucking everyone. So I'm at the point now where I don't care. If your freedom means that I might catch COVID, then so be it. If my freedom means you might catch COVID, then so be it. because that's going to be the case that happens. Even vaccinated people can still transfer the virus. For the sake of freedom, yours and mine together, I will cheerfully risk catching COVID. Surely this is too reprehensible, even for AF Neo. Is that the end of the bloody article? Is that it? You wrote a few bloody paragraphs, mate. All you did was wrote what he said. What kind of article's this? Really, that's the article? And then it's just adverts, as far as the eye can see. Hold on. Let's look at the side cursor, right? There's the article, right? Look at this cursor here. There's the article. Adverts. Adverts and other articles. Jesus Christ, mate. Posted at 3. There you go. He posted it at 3 in the morning. There's my good deed for the day, and then he went to bed. Like, there's one thing is, like, that headline absolutely should not have been used. It's reprehensible pro-freedom views. Like that, you could have said, literally, there was so many other options, right? Lawrence Fox says, Neil Oliver speaks for us all with statements that could endanger lives and spread COVID. Like, that's something that you could have said. Like, there were so many other different options you could have chose, but instead you went with reprehensible pro-freedom views. And the amount of times that journalists are online like, why are we getting bullied all the time? This is why. This is why, because you say shit like this. Pro-freedom is reprehensible. Really. See, one of the things as well is, like, I talk to a lot of people that work with, like, you know, lots of, like, non-profits that work for around the world with journalists that have been arrested, journalists that have been bloody killed in the field reporting on stories, or imprisoned by governments, or, you know, especially in the case of Belarus, mysteriously vanishing off the street at night and never to be heard from again. There's a lot a lot of non-profit organisations that work to help journalists like this, and they really hate people like you because you make them all look bad. Because it's at the point now where journalists get kidnapped. Good. And that's not a nice way to think. That's not a nice way to be. Journalists have freedom of speech just like the rest of us. For some journalists, their freedom of speech is a lot more vital than the rest of us. You know, the journalists that report on big, important stories. You know, things like the mafia has threatened to kill me, but I'm going to report the story anyway. Or, yeah, I just exposed a global, like, child trafficking ring and stuff like that. Or, I went to Africa and discovered that terrorist groups there are using, like, human slave labour. I managed to find their locations and track them all down, and then wrote my story and handed all this information over to the authorities. That journalism, tasty journalism. That's journalism that fucks, right? That is that good shit, right? None of this Vice 10 things I shoved up my arse while I was on acid or anything, or just, like, or an article crying about a tweet that some senator made, or garbage like this that literally in the title says reprehensible pro-freedom views. Right? This is garbage journalism. This is gutter tier absolute trash, right? Like, I'm not exactly pro-bullying, but, you know, journalists, you bring it on yourselves.